Hello, I'm Philip Brunelle, Artistic Director and founder of Vocal Essence and organist choirmaster at Plymouth Congregational Church in Minneapolis. Today, I've selected 8 composers for a little snapshot of each, beginning with Hans Leo Hassler. Born in 1564, died in 1612. German composer and organist. He was for many years in Nuremberg, and it's amazing, he was the town musician, which meant he had to do the music for all the churches there. Then he did the same thing when he moved to Dresden. He loved the whole idea of structures of, again, kind of like Gabrieli, being in many different parts of a building to create a wonderful sonic effect. So here's the beginning of his Verbum caro factum est. The word was made flesh. So you can hear the treble, the bass coming together. Hans Leo Hassler. Our second composer from Sweden, Gunnar Edenstam, a composer, a fabulous concert organist, and a folk musician. He combines music that either could be French cathedral in style, symphonic rock, and Swedish folk music. He's a member of the Royal Swedish Academy and has composed some wonderful music for choir. I love this little piece because it's for a folk fiddler and a choir. The choir sings a very familiar hymn, but it is introduced by the folk fiddle. And the fiddle continues and finally ends up. And then later, the fiddle plays while they're singing. Music of Gunnar Edenstam. That was Ringen I Klockor. Our third composer, Gunnar Jeffreys, comes from England, 1610 to 1685. Composer and organist, spent his life in a very remote part of England on a baron's estate. Wrote 100 anthems, they're all devotional, and one of them that I find very mystical and special is a piece called A Music Strange. And I think what makes it unique also is that he used the words of a metaphysical poet of that time, George Herbert. And you have a text that says, "A music strange, full of delight and change, steals on mine ear." And so he creates just some wonderful effects that most composers in England in that time were not doing. music of Gunnar Jeffreys. Our fourth composer, also from England, John Joubert. Born in 1927, actually in South Africa, but early on moved to England, died in 2019. Taught at Birmingham, composed more than 180 works for choir, concertos, symphonies, operas, lots of wonderful music, and probably best known for his arrangement from the Oxford Carol book of a little old hymn from Galicia called Torches, Torches, Run with Torches. Our fifth composer, the American composer Dan Locklair, born in 1949, organist and composer, taught at Wake Forest University in North Carolina, composed for organ, choir, symphony, chamber music. For the inauguration of President Clinton, he composed to words of Maya Angelou a piece called Since Dawn, and an organ piece of his, Rubrics, was played at the funeral for President Reagan. Recently, he composed a piece called Spirit of Mercy, Truth, and Love. Music of Dan Locklair. Our sixth composer, the English and then American composer Tertius Noble, the T standing for Thomas, born in 1867, died in 1953, began life in England but then came to the USA. In England, he was at Ely and then York, and then coming to the USA was at St. Thomas Church in New York City for 35 years. One of the things that he did, which I wasn't aware of, is that his score of Handel's Messiah, the vocal score that was published by G. Schirmer, is the one that probably in the early days was more available than any other score that churches and universities and colleges all used. He composed many anthems, and one of them, a rather brooding piece for Lent, was his piece, Go to Dark Gethsemane. It begins very much in a dark place, but then it changes after that opening. After you say, watch one bitter hour, then you say, turn not away from his griefs. Music of Tertius Noble. Our seventh composer, Jose Nuñes-Garcia, born in 1767, died in 1830. An Afro-Brazilian composer, priest, and harpsichordist, probably the most prolific composer of his time in Brazil, wrote more than 240 pieces, and is famed for a requiem mass that he wrote in 1816. If you didn't know that this was Nuñes-Garcia, you would think, is this something that Mozart composed or another composer of that period? But it's Nuñes-Garcia, a piece for orchestra and chorus and soloists. And our final composer today, the Swedish composer Anders Ohrwall, born in 1932, died in 2012. Composer, conductor, arranger for many years with the Adolf Fredrik Church in Stockholm, and founded the Stockholm Bach Choir, conducted at the Swedish Radio Choir and the Phoenix Bach Choir. He wrote a great deal of music, did some wonderful arrangements, including this charming one from a melody in the region of Sweden called Dalarna. It's a setting of the Advent hymn, Prepare the Way, O Zion. But you can get that real feeling of the folk in the way he has set this, beginning in unison. A little short snapshot of 8 composers today. Have a wonderful day.